Hey, welcome back to my guitar channel. This is Dave, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about David Gilmour. The song in the beginning I was playing was The Final Cut off the album The Final Cut, which was the last album that Waters and Gilmour played together. David Gilmour is one of my favorite guitar players, and that's not the reason why my Strat looks like his. I actually would probably never buy a signature Strat. Just not my thing. I mean, unless, of course, it felt great and everything else. However, when I'd seen his black Strat and that it was coming back around and I saw how cool it looked, I was like, that's the look of a Strat that I would like. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Glenn Tipton era Judas Priest, but yet it's classic and doesn't pigeonhole you into a thing. And, it's Gilmour's look, but whatever. This guitar actually, I was going to say was, but no, it is a American Deluxe V-neck. And this was the last year that they did the abalone, which I wish it wasn't abalone, but it is. I like the black dots better. I've had the frets redone with stainless steel jumbos. I put the extra string tree at the top. Trying to think of other things I did to this guitar. The pickguard is a Warmoth pickguard, 90 thou, one ply. And that's why it has the bevel, because it's 90,000, not a 60,000. The pickups are a DiMarzio Pro 54, Area 58, Area 58. And yes, Ed Dana, I took out the S1 switching, that Bill Lawrence switch, because I do not like it. This is my favorite of the Fender bridges. It's the deluxe bridge. This is a pop-in arm with no plastic tip. And just the way the saddles are, the arm, everything about this trim is the one that I like to use. And it's a V-neck. Everything else about this guitar, I love this guitar. It just so happens that I like the look of Gilmour's guitar. Gilmour is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. And if there's anybody who can live by the statement that less is more, it's him. He plays what is so right for every song. He doesn't really, never overplays. Always leaves you wanting a little bit more. He's just one of those players that's very sensitive as a listener. You can tell that he's very intent on getting to the point. And even if it takes a long time, it's like you can listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I still don't think there's a wasted minute on that song. It's funny. I guess when he was younger in the earlier Pink Floyd days, the stuff that I'm not that crazy about, anything before metal, I'm not that big on. There's some okay stuff there. But if he said something along the lines of he loves playing all that stuff where he was up on stage soloing for hours, but he would hate to be an audience member, which I find very funny because he gets it. Like he's very empathetic for the audience member of what they're seeing. And I think Waters was as well. I think as a visual, those guys understood that there's a show and each thing has a part and there's like a dynamic and they understand that. It's funny, for a long time I was not a fan of Dark Side of the Moon, and I recently revisited it. And Any Color You Like, and Us and Them, just some of those chords are just great. And there's just so much stuff that I it's like just love it. It's just But either way, it's just great stuff, and I've gotten back to really liking it. Although, getting back to it and giving that album another listen, another chance, if you listen to the song Money, that guitar solo is a dead ripoff of the vibe and the solo of the Grand Wazoo by Frank Zappa. It's the same solo. And they toured with Zappa in 72, so you know that they heard it enough that it wasn't like, oh, we came up with it at the same time. I mean, they were opening for Zappa back then, so. But anyways, yeah, funny that they were opening for Zappa, and then the next year they became huge. But yeah, so if you take Dark Side, and then of course, and I think it's a great album, but I do think that Wish You Were Here is just, light years better. Animals is my all-time favorite. I think The Wall's a little bit into the step back. I used to think at one point The Wall was my favorite, and now it's probably like around one of my least favorites from the big era. I feel that it's just there's a lot of cool parts, but the sum of them doesn't really excite me like the way the Final Cut. I think the Final Cut's a better album. I just think the soloing on, I mean, if you're talking about the solos alone, the Fletcher Memorial Home and the Final Cut, fantastic. Song-wise, I think the songs are a little bit longer and nicer. There's more, it's like a more concise record. Two Suns in the Sunset's great. I just think it's great. And then, I'm a huge, huge fan of Gilmour's solo record, especially the first one. I like On an Island a lot. I liked About Face a lot. But I think that first record, I talked about Robin Trower's record, and I think Gilmour's album there, if you want to pinpoint the best of Gilmour in the 70s, just get that first solo album. I mean, just even that song, I just love that, and that's all drop D. It's like a predecessor to Run Like Hell. You could hear he was coming up with that voicing and all that stuff. We could talk about Gilmour as a producer. He's worked with some bands. I know he did some stuff with the Salvation Army band, play the Dream Academy, and he was some Kate Bush stuff. But just for the stuff that he did with Pink Floyd, the post-Pink Floyd, the post-Waters Pink Floyd, which I would literally just call an extension of Gilmour's solo stuff, I don't really see that as Pink Floyd. I see that as more as a David Gilmour album in the Pink Floyd format of trying to be dramatic and not being such a solo thing. But overall, this guy, for me, is one of the greats. He's definitely one of my favorite players. I can't say enough great things about him. He's one of the few guys who I like that uses the Digitech whammy the way I think it should be used. He's very tasteful with it. That solo, again, that I played at the beginning was just outrageous. I just over time, and the other thing I love about David Gilmour is, here's a guy back in the 70s with the long hair, the typical rock and roller guy. And he got older and he cut his hair and he looks like an English gentleman. And it's like, he's still one of the greatest guitar players. I love that he doesn't cave into that rock and roll thing. Like, you see Jimmy Page, and I'm a huge Jimmy Page fan, but lose the ponytail. Your hair long. You're in your 70s. Cut your hair. I don't know. I just think it looks silly. As a kid, I can understand you were a rebellious youth, but it's like, I don't know. I look at Gilmour and I'm like, I relate to him. He's a relatable guy to me as far as how he plays. He's had some problems with Waters and stuff, and I don't like to get into the middle of all that stuff when it comes to bands about my opinion of one way or the other. Mainly, one, because I don't care. I think Waters is probably an asshole, but I think probably Gilmour at some point was too. I mean, Waters was really responsible for the bulk of the writing, and a lot of that falls on the writer. And it's difficult as a writer to write something and then not have somebody be able to perform it. I know Sting went through that. And with Waters, they brought in like Jeff Porcaro on The Wall, and I know that pissed off Nick Mason, and they brought in Andy Newmark on the final cut, and that was the final straw for Nick Mason. But it's like, he has stuff in his head, he wants to get it out. I understand that. It's just unfortunate of how, things go like that. The whole Richard Wright thing with Waters, I didn't fully understand, like, why he was so mad that Richard Wright wasn't, getting more involved. It's like, and then you want to kick him out. It's just, that part didn't make much sense to me. And I think, whatever. But, like I said, all these bands have their inner fightings. I mean, Mick and Keith fought for whatever, for the longest time. There's obviously, it's funny. Somebody was posting something. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Ed. And Ed Dana is a guy who has a guitar page, very cool page. If you want to go check it out, subscribe and whatnot. But he had a comment about about people getting along in a band, and I think that if you respect everybody as a musician and everyone works hard, then you don't have to worry about whether you guys are buddies, because you'll have that mutual respect. And I think that goes more a long way. Nobody says in bands, like, I'd much rather be in a band with somebody who is probably more committed to playing the stuff and being good and playing it right and more caring about the product than somebody who I'm buddies with. Because if you're buddies with them and they're lazy, well, now there's a problem, and you may not be buddies for long because, number one, you feel like it might be disrespectful to you, to the band, to anything, and two, you just want to get somebody in there that wants to do the job. You're not there to have, some people are there to have fun. I do this for a living, and so to me it's not like, I'm not really caring if it's not fun for me if I'm doing it with a bunch of guys I like and they don't take it serious. I like to, so I understand that respect of, like, when people have that mutual respect. And, I think Waters and Gilmour came up with some of the best albums in the 70s. My recommendation would be check out Animals. To me, that record is like, it's got like 3 songs and then 2, like an intro, outro. I don't know if you would call Pigs on the Wing Parts 1 and 2 a song. It's still like 2 minutes long if you combine them. But technically, it's like 4 songs, then if you count that as one song. Because then you get Dogs, Pigs, 3 different ones, and Sheep. And it's just a great record. It's just, the guy's great. As far as, like, being an inspirational player, I think he's inspired so many people. And I really can't say too much about Pink Floyd other than the fact that they are what they are. The songs are legendary. They're up there with some of the biggest selling albums of all time, and I love it. Yeah, if there's anything else I could recommend by David Gilmour to see how great he is and what a performer he is, I would check out the Live in Gdansk, Poland. Is awesome. It's a great CD. It's great visually to watch. I think you can even see it on YouTube. Anyways, huge Gilmour fan here. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'll see you later. Very good.